So I have with me Professor Aditya Mathur. He is our Center Director for iTrust. I also have Francisco. He's the Cyber Tech Lead. And today's presentation will be led by Siddhant. He's a Research Associate with iTrust, as well as Gautam, a Research Fellow with iTrust. So both of them will do the main bulk of the presentation. And then if you have any questions, we also have our engineers with us, Andrew and Jonathan. So, okay, without further ado, let me pass the time on to Siddhant. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. And this briefing will be about the Critical Infrastructure Security Showdown, which some of you or most of you would have attended in the past. So we will go through this year's edition of the exercise. And you can see a significant change right in the first slide itself, where all of you are being addressed as IDS teams. And this will be a nomenclature that we will follow throughout the exercise. So this will be a briefing to all IDS teams. And with that, let's begin with the briefing. So I'll go through a brief overview about this year's version of CISS. Then we'll go through the timeline and schedule. And then we'll cover the brief steps that will entail all the installation as well as setup steps, which will involve physical installation as well as the digital installation in the test beds that we will use for CISS. And then we'll cover the exercise platform itself, what has changed since last year's, and cover the technical details of each of these platforms that we will use this time. And finally, the most important part of this entire exercise, which is how do we collect all the alerts and anomalies throughout the exercise, during the execution of the exercise, as well as after the exercise ends. So how do we analyze these results will be equally important as conducting the exercise itself. So with that, I'll just introduce you to the white and green teams of CISS that you will be continuously communicating with. So in the white cell, we have like people from MINDEF that you can see here, Ruben and William. And then you have Professor Aditya Mathur and Mark in this call. From the green team, you have Francisco, Gautam, Andrew, Jonathan, and myself. And from the red team, you have Wong Chong as well as Andy, who you might see around in the exercise, but you will be mostly communicating with the people that you see on this slide. So this is pretty much the white and green teams, and more people will be shown in the opening ceremony of the exercise. So just to give you a brief overview of how CISS has evolved since 2016, it started as an inaugural cyber exercise, and then more live stages got added, such as the secure water treatment plant. Then we conducted a fully online CISS in 2020. In 2021, we added the water distribution plant, and this time we are adding support from NCL as well as EPIC, which is our power testbed. So this will be an additional challenge for all the IDS teams here to monitor not just one, but 3 testbeds all at once during the exercise. And this exercise itself will be held in 2 stages, CISS as well as SIDEX, which is a defense exercise that will be conducted later. This briefing is purely about CISS, which will be conducted in September. The objectives of CISS are threefold. They are to validate and assess the effectiveness of technologies that have been developed by researchers and commercial entities within iTrust. Then the major second goal is to develop capabilities for defending critical infrastructures under cyber attacks or extreme attacks that you will see during the course of this presentation, as well as during the exercise. So how do you defend against cyber physical attacks will be as important as defending against purely cyber attacks, which most of you are familiar with. And finally, to understand composite TTPs, or tactics, techniques, and procedures for enhanced operational security. So these are the objectives of CISS, and together with all the IDS teams, with all of you, we'll help satisfy these objectives. Then this is the brief overview of the timeline of CISS. There is a much detailed timeline coming in the next slide, but I'll go through the overall timeline first. So on 21st July, that is today, we have the team briefing. From now until 5th of August, all the IDS vendor team systems will be installed. Then on 8th of August, after all the systems have been installed, we'll conduct baselining as well as publish the rules of engagement for the exercise for all IDS teams to follow. And the baselining exercise will be basically running the plant in a very specific manner so as to align all your IDS systems to a common set of data parameters, which will help you fine tune your models and whichever way you detect anomalies. So this baselining exercise will be done on 8th of August first. Then we'll conduct a practice run on 10th to 12th of August, which will be a replica of the exercise where we will be launching attacks and also different kinds of scenarios that you will witness during the exercise. Then we'll have a 1 month period, which I'll go into in the next slide, but the actual exercise will start from 12th of September when we'll have the opening ceremony and then exercise execution until 16th of September. And then there will be an important event on the 19th of September in which there will be an IDS evaluation exercise by iTrust. So all the IDS teams will be evaluated by iTrust, and the red team participating on this day will be iTrust's red team itself. So we will have a catalog of attacks against which we'll compare the performance of different IDSs, and we'll work closely with all of you, and I'll share more details about that later. So a more detailed timeline for all the people present here is that on 21st to 23rd of July, that is from now until end of the week, we request you to book 2 days for setup at iTrust, and I'll share the steps for the setup in the next slides. But essentially, this means that we want IDS teams to come down physically to iTrust and spend 2 days, 2 days of their choice in the next 2 weeks to install their systems and to test if logging and other things are working correctly. Then after everything has been installed till 5th August, we'll conduct an initial baselining event on 8th of August. And then that will be followed by a practice run during 10th to 12th of August. Then there will be a 1 month period in which we'll figure out any errors that might have popped up and correct any kinks that we have witnessed during these events. So 12th August to 11th of September, that's a 1 month period, will be about troubleshooting as well as regular baselining, which we'll conduct twice a week on Monday and Friday in the morning sessions. So these baselining exercises will further help you improve the performance of your detectors and IDS systems. So this will happen until 11th of September. And then from 12th to 16th of September, we'll have the actual execution of the exercise. And all the IDS systems will work on their own in an automatic manner. And all the alert logging will be happening without your manual intervention during these 4 days of the exercise. So alert logging during the phase 1 of the exercise will happen during 12th to 16th September. On 19th of September, we'll do another alert logging exercise during the iTrust Red Team performance, which is a scheduled set of attacks, and we'll go into more detail later. So this will be a much more involved alert logging, which will have a specific format and everything. So we'll describe that. On 20th of September, within 24 hours, we will provide you all the alert logs as well as the attack list, and we'll expect all the IDS teams to provide evidence of detection and anomalies to iTrust within the next week. So these will be the steps involving the collaboration between all of you IDS teams as well as iTrust. So this is the detailed timeline. So I won't be monitoring the chat during this session, but all my colleagues will be monitoring it and replying to you on chat. So we'll come to the questions at the end of the session, but until then, all my colleagues will keep responding. So this brings us to the first step, which is IDS installation and setup. So the first step is to book 2 days to set up your systems at iTrust from our booking link, which I'll share in the next slide. So this will happen between 25 July to 5th of August, which is the next couple of weeks. And this will happen from morning 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So this will be 2 full days that will be given to each IDS team or each vendor to come down physically to iTrust to deliver their systems to Itrust Swot Lab. So if some of you have been to Itrust, this is what the tables would look like, where you would physically set up your systems, and you will be provided aggregated traffic from all 3 test beds via Ethernet. So there will be one RJ45 port that will be made available, and you can expect a throughput of 700 Mbps. And we expect you to bring your own equipment, including cables and power strips, for the setup of your systems. Then baselining will be done once all vendors have finished installing on 8th of August. So this brings me to how the booking procedure will be done. So we are using an online system called Doodle, which is a scheduling tool, and it's done through a web interface. So essentially, you will see a screen like this, in which you will have slots. So I expect all of you to fill in as many slots as you can, which you are comfortable with. And then we'll have to decide which 2 slots to give to each IDS team, so as to avoid any conflicts in the final scheduling. So this is what it would look like. So let's say you are going to the booking link through the IDS team. You can select any number of slots in the next 2 weeks. And finally, I'll get the responses from these entries, and we'll send you a schedule of which days you can come down and work with the engineers to install in the next 2 days. So once you submit your selection, you will see a pop-up like this. So you can just enter your details, and just to follow a consistent format, you can do it in the form of IDS _ vendor name _ the person who is doing the registration for their IDS team, as well as your vendor email. And these will be the emails that we will be communicating with you on the scheduling of the booking. So after you have finalized, we will get the results of which days you want to come down, and then we'll respond by letting you know which 2 days we have scheduled you in the next 2 weeks. So this is essentially the booking link, and you don't need to worry about this. I'll share that in the chat later, and a link will be provided in the chat as well as sent via email. If you want to do it now, here's a QR code. You can just take a picture of it and do it like whenever you feel like. So this QR code takes you to that same link. So if you want to take a moment and take a picture, please feel free and go ahead. And I'll just check the chat in the meanwhile. Yeah. So there's a question which Darren has answered. Like if any of my colleagues are available, please try to answer that. I'll move ahead with the next slides for now. So yeah, the setup for CISS 2022 execution will be covered in the next slides. So this time we have not 1, but 3 testbeds interconnected with each other. So we have water treatment, water distribution, and electric power testbeds during the exercise. So these 3 will be connected, and you will be getting network traffic from all these 3 OT networks during the event. So this is what the network architecture for CISS finals would look like. So these are the IDS team systems, which include iTrust's own detectors, the vendor systems, as well as the IDS. And then you will be getting aggregated traffic from all these 3 systems, which is Swot, Wadi, and Epic, through an RJ45 port. So all of this will be sent through an aggregator, and this is how you will be monitoring all the network traffic. All the network details are mentioned here. For example, Swot has the subnet 192.168.1.0/24, and similarly for Wadi and Epic. And just to give you context about how the red teams will be playing during the exercise, they will be coming through a form-up area, and they'll be directly given access to all these 3 testbeds. So unlike previous years, there will be no IT configuration that they have to pass through. They will be directly dropped into the OT segments, and they'll directly start launching attacks. So this time you can expect even more activity compared to previous years, because that entire duration of the exercise is focused on live attacks on the OT systems. So to reiterate, these systems, the green team systems that I mentioned, all act as attack targets for the OT red teams, and they will be continuously launching attacks. And these are the segments that you have to monitor continuously for any alerts or anomalies throughout those 4 days, as well as phase 2, which is the iTrust red team. So these will form the attack targets. To drill down into these attack targets even further, these are the attack targets for SWOT, or the Secure Water Treatment Testbed. And you can see all these different attack targets that you see here. So this includes a combination of IT components such as SCADA, Historian, which is a database server, an engineering workstation, etc., as well as OT components that you see here, such as flow meters, pressure meters, water level meters, as well as pumps and valves. So these are all the components that you have to monitor through the network traffic that you will be receiving. So you can monitor both the IT as well as the OT traffic to come to a conclusion whether to raise an alert or not. So just to give you a brief overview of the systems that I mentioned in the previous slide, this is a screenshot of the SCADA system of Secure Water Treatment Testbed. And you see all the different components, such as P101 corresponds to a pump and so on. And I have mentioned all these components in a lot more detail in the appendix of this presentation. So after slide number 50 or so, you will be seeing all these different components in a lot more detail, and each of these processes, physical processes, will be explained there in a lot more detail. So these slides will be shared with you, and you can go through all of these steps as well as understand how the plant itself works if this is your first time defending SWOT, WADI, or EPIC, or detecting attacks on these plants. So we won't cover any of these processes in a lot of detail in this briefing, but all the manuals will be made available, as well as this appendix of this presentation contains all the details necessary. So here we come to the network diagram of water treatment plant, and I invite Francisco here to describe how this plant is structured, to share about what kind of traffic you can expect from this water treatment plant called SWOT.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, so SWOT is divided into 3 levels. You have the level 0, which is the PLC, RIO, and sensors and actuators. Level 1, which is the PLC to the touch panel HMI, and level 3 up to the historian and engineering workstation. So in this SWOT network, we have the PLCs are Allen Bradley PLCs. The subnet is 192.168.1.0, and the protocol you can be expecting will be Ethernet IP. Yeah, next.
Next slide goes into the attack targets on WADI. It's a similar set of targets and similar to SWOT. And then this is what the SCADA looks like, similar to SWOT. And Francisco can share about the network structure of WADI, which has an additional protocol.
Yeah, so WADI is also in the same subnet as SWOT, but here we have additional protocol of Modbus TCP. This is for the analyzer sensors, and typically it also follows the same format of the Purdue model, the level 0, level 1, and level 2. Yeah, next.
Yeah. So these are all the attack targets for EPIC. SCADA, Historian remain similar, but you have new devices here which are different from water treatment or water distribution devices, such as IEDs, or intelligent electronic devices, smart meters, circuit breakers, motors, generators, PV photovoltaic inverters, load banks, as well as switches. So these are all the different OT components that you will be getting data from during the exercise. And Francisco can describe how the EPIC network as well as the SCADA is structured.
So EPIC is a power grid network. So it buys power from GenCos and it sells power to the smart homes. So in the blue segment, this is where the GenCos are simulated, where we are using SCTD incoming power to run generators, to run the motors, which will then power the 2 generators in yellow. Yeah. So together with the 2 generators and the PV system, which is the solar panel, this will all contribute to the power supply to the grid. It will then be transmitted to the smart home. So we, in this scenario, we're only playing two loads, which is the critical and non-critical load. Yeah. Yeah. Next. Yeah. So the network is 2 subnets. It's 172.18 and 172.16. The 172.18 compromises of the SCADA and the firewall to the PLCs and the IEDs. Well, the 172.16 compromises of each individual's segment that you saw earlier. So the colors of blue, yellow, orange, and pink correspond to the previous SCADA stages also. So the protocols here you can expect will be the IEC 61850 standard, which is using MMS. MMS is the communication between the SCADA and the PLCs and IEDs, while Goose is the communication between IEDs. Yeah. We also have Modbus TCP. Modbus TCP is from the PLC to the VSD that controls the motor. Yeah. And here the PLCs we're using is the WAGO PLCs. Next.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the entire description of the three systems, and there's a lot more detail that we can go into that's covered in the appendix, as well as the manuals that you will find on our website, and all those details will be sent to you. So for now, we'll cover the alert logging procedure and timeline, which is the actual logistics of how the IDS systems will play out during the actual execution of the exercise during 12 to 16 September. So we'll cover those parts first. So alert logging will happen via syslog. And Francisco, do you want to cover this particular slide?
Yeah. So for the exercise from 12 to 16 of September, where the external red teams are doing their own attacks, the time slot for your alert logging or for your data collection will be from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. On the 19th of September, this is where iTrust red team will be running their own attacks for focused on OT attacks. Yeah, so they will also be from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Do note that the 19th of September, that is where the IDS evaluation will be taking place. Yeah, so for 12 to 16 of September, if you want to collect anything, is up to you. We will not be providing any data during that period. So iTrust will turn on your systems at 8:30 a.m. And we will shut it down at the end of the day. So if you need to have any special requirements of how to shut down, please write it down first so that we can assist you. And so because of the lack of space, you have to control your systems remotely. Yeah. So when you're installing your systems in the next 2 weeks, please make sure that your systems are able to produce the syslogs for the Algrelog extractor. And fields to include would be like a vendor name. You can also include the plant if you're able to dissect which or indicate which plant it is from, and the alert type. The alert type we will go through later by Siddhan. And yeah, sorry, that's the same point as the third point.
Yeah, so the moment you install these systems in the next couple of weeks, as well as during the baselining, please ensure that Greylock can receive your syslogs. And these are the monitoring rules. Francisco can cover what these subnets mean.
Yeah, so the 192.168.1 is the Swot and WADI network. 172.1 is the SCADA, and 172.16 is the PLC. The 172 network is specifically for Epic. Yeah, so please do not monitor, or you do not need to monitor our hypervisors. The 10.0 network is our internet network. And the 196 is if anybody has issues connecting to the DHCP servers. So these will create noise in your system. So you do not need to monitor them, because for the targets the iTrust will be attacking and the red teams will be attacking, it will not be in those subnets. So you do not need to monitor those.
All right. So this brings us to the next phase of the exercise, which is data analysis. And the timeline for that is 19 to 26 September. And this is the IDS evaluation exercise, which Francisco was alluding to. And this will take place directly in collaboration with all of us at iTrust. So this is a 6-step process. So step 1 is that on 19th of September, detector performance analysis will take place. So each IDS team has to configure their IDS in such a way that each IDS sends the alerts to the alert logger on that particular day. And there's a specific format in which we are expecting the responses, the alert format to be. And these are that each alert should have a category. And this category can be of 4 different types, which is an IT attack, which is a network traffic related alert, or an OT alert, which is a plant process or an OT related alert, an IT OT alert, which is a network and plant process related alert, and not applicable or NA, which means you're unable to classify or categorize or tag that particular alert in any of the other 3 categories. So these are the 4 categories in which alerts should be sent, and the exact alert format as well as the communication protocol will be provided by us like in the next few weeks. So these few slides will provide examples of each of those 4 categories, just so that there's common consensus on how to categorize an attack. So if data is extracted from the historian by a rogue host on the IT network during the exercise, as well as on 19th of September, the anomaly is purely observed in the IT traffic as an unusual connection made to the historian database server. So this is a pure IT attack, and this should be classified as an IT attack. An example of an OT attack would be a PLC command is issued to open a valve when the valve should ideally be closed. So this is an OT attack. There is no anomaly observed in the IT traffic. If you monitor the OT traffic, you might see a tag change its value when you scan for specific information. So this is an example of an OT attack because there's an actual physical impact on an OT component, a valve in this case. Then we come to the more interesting category of IT-OT attacks, which are more hybrid and which can have interdependent consequences on both IT as well as OT systems. So this can be, for example, an attack may begin by extracting data from the PLC directly using a PLC protocol such as PyLogix, which is specifically for Allen Bradley PLCs. And now until now, it's purely an IT attack because we are just reading data from the PLC. Now, because you're reading and querying the PLC quite a lot, that causes a load on the PLC traffic. And as a result, PLCs are unable to communicate among each other because their own network gets throttled. So PLC decision making gets affected as a result of this kind of a red team attack. And then commands are not issued on time. And this has an effect on OT components. And all of this behavior can be observed through both IT network analysis as well as OT network analysis. So this kind of an attack should be flagged as an IT-OT attack. So these are all the examples of the 3 tags. So once all of this is done on the 19th of September, the iTrust Red Team session will happen throughout the day on 19th of September. On 20th September, within 24 hours, iTrust will send each vendor a table with the alert logs generated by their IDS. So we will send you all the tags which we received, all the logs that we received from each of your IDS systems. And then we'll send back additional details about attack descriptions, as well as attach an attack ID to each of these attacks. So these additional details will help you fill in the empty columns, which is the next step of the exercise. And these empty columns will be about detection and evidence. So we want to see if your IDS was able to detect those particular attacks, and we'll also ask for evidence of detection. So step 3 is for IDS teams to respond to iTrust with a filled sheet, and the columns to be filled are detection and evidence. And this is what the entire structure of the sheet would look like. So there will be a column for timestamp. Firstly, there will be detailed a table for filling in your details, such as date, IDS name, the start time of your analysis, and the end time of your analysis. Then there will be columns for timestamp. There will be a column for attack ID, which is a unique ID we attach to each attack. Then there will be a detailed description of the attack. And then we'll ask you if the attack was detected by your IDS. So the yellow columns are the ones which we are requesting each IDS team to fill up and reply us with. So these columns can be answered through yes or no if you're able to detect or not. And then as soon as we receive it, we'll respond in a final column with whether we accept your response or not, whether we accept your evidence of detection or not. And these evidences can be in the form of a format that you propose. So for example, this example says refer this particular row in a log file that you provide in the form of alerts. So this can help us cross-check if you were indeed able to detect the attack. And then we'll cross-check with our own detection whether we accept the response or not based on the evidence. So step number 4 is to be completed by iTrust, as I just mentioned. We'll complete the response column, and this column will contain accept or not accepted, which means we consider an evidence accepted if we accept the evidence that the vendor has claimed that the attack has been detected. If we do not agree with the associated reasoning, we'll enter not accepted. And there will be a resolution step. In case there's a disagreement between a vendor and iTrust, a meeting will be scheduled before September 29th to come to a final consensus on what that table should represent. So that will be all the steps. And finally, we'll publish the report, and the final version of each table will be made available to the report writer as well as to the corresponding vendor for each IDS team. So these are all the steps involved. And this is once again, the timeline summary for all the steps that we have covered so far. So this is an exercise that begins in a way today as of this briefing, and we expect everyone to make a booking on the website, like for as many slots as you can make it to iTrust, and then we'll schedule 2 days. Then we expect vendors to come down, all the IDS teams to come down in the next 2 weeks to install their systems and test if logging works correctly. Then on 8th of August, we'll conduct an initial baseline. From 10th to 12th of August, we'll do a practice run. Then for the next month, we'll troubleshoot and conduct regular baselining. Then we'll have the actual exercise execution in September. And those final steps will be the phases 1 that Francisco described, as well as phase 2, which I just described. So once all of this is done, this will complete the role of the IDS team in CISS. So this brings us to the end of the presentation. If you have any question, just type in your questions in the chat, and all the members of our team will begin to respond. And just to note, we have an appendix which goes into all the details of each of these test beds, and this is an additional 20 plus slides which you can go through later on. So yeah, that's all from my side in this presentation. Now I look forward to answering all your questions with my team.
We'll read out the questions that came out from the chat during the briefing, then we can run through them. So the first one that came out was, you can go to the network diagram. So previous iteration, the IT network had a separate spend source and much higher throughput. So now currently we have removed the IT portion. So you only get the traffic from the 3 test beds, which is the Swot, Wadi, and Epic. Yeah. So we have done some tests, and the current throughput that we have is about 700 Mbps. Yeah. Next question from Rani is, can we get sample PCAPs from each segment? We can arrange this and look into it. Maybe we can give you an hour of PCAPs for each plant. Darren's question is, can we request for additional spend link? Yeah, I guess you can request, and then we'll see what we can provide for you, because we catered 1 per IDS system. So if you require additional, maybe you can write in through email, and then we can see how we can organize this. After the question from Michael, after practice run and during baselining process, the test bed be constantly running? So currently, what we have planned is that 2 days every week, we will run the plan because there are still some things that we need to do with the system. So it will not be running constantly. Yeah. Question from Gavin. In the past events, the blue teams will need to set up their own remote access to iTrust. Is this still the same as last year? Yes. You need to have another network adapter to connect to your own Wi-Fi, unless you want to use the SUTD guest, which is I think only available for 24 hours. So as previous years, blue teams or the IDS systems had to set up another network so that they can access their systems remotely. Question from Amir. We're doing level 0 anomaly detection. When can we receive the detailed IO sensors list? This is essential for our physical connections and hardware engineering. I think this is the first time we are hearing about level 0 anomaly detection. Previous years, we only provided the PCAPs. So maybe we can discuss with you offline on how you want to do this. If you only need access to the sensor values from the historian, that is still possible. But if you need to install a system into the network, we will need to discuss this. Question from Darren. Is it essential to classify the events into IT, OT, as you mentioned? If you cannot do that, but classify each alert based on the type of attack. Example, malware, man in the middle, would that be fine? So the reason why we came up with this classification is because in previous years, when we did analysis of the attacks, it wasn't clear on which whether the alert was actually generated for the attack launched. So for example, if an attack was launched on IP 192.168.1.30, but the alert generated was not specific enough to say whether it was to that IP, it was still considered detected. So we request for the info to be as detailed as possible, so that when you're able to check with the check back on the alerts and versus the attacks, it's detailed enough. Now, anyway, to determine what the correct set points are, set points for each sensor values, we can send you that list of the sensor values of the highs and the lows. Question from Rani. Rules of engagement should include not cancelling import. Can you clarify this? I'm not sure what the question is.
It's just a request that cancelling a mirror port on the switch will be out of the rules of engagement.
Yes, that will be. It will not be the rules of engagement for the red team. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if any questions, you can email myself or Mark. Sorry, we'll use another email. Hold on.
Yeah, we have CyberX, as in cyberex@sec.ed.sg. If you visit the CISS website, you can see the email address over there. So please direct your inquiries to that email address.
Yeah, we'll put that in the chat. Give us a second.
So please send it to this email, cyberex@sec.ed.edu.sg. Together with whoever you need to coordinate from your side. so that everyone is in the loop of what is required. Question from Michael. Yes, the question is the two water networks have distinct IPs, meaning there'll be no duplicate IPs. Yes, they're sharing the same subnet. So the PLCs and the Historia and the SCADA will have the distinct IPs. This list will also be sent to you. Question from Darren, are we still dealing with the digital twins? No. So there's only 3 physical test bits in this year's exercise.
Hey, Francisco, this is Darren here. I think it's easier to ask you over here. Okay, back to my earlier question about the request to classify alerts, based on IT, OT. At least for us, is because I just speak for myself here is that we don't classify our alerts like that by default. I mean, and we also try to avoid spending too much engineering hours just to customize this requirement. So if we don't fulfill that requirement, we still send alerts, and then during the last week where we have to submit evidence, we justify it and explain it through as much as we can there. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think that will be okay. We will send you the IDS, the Ciss logs that your system generated, and using those logs, you can use that as evidence.
Sorry, I lost your audio there a bit. Can you repeat it again?
Okay, so when you send out the Ciss logs to our system, we will provide you those logs, and so you can use those as the evidence. In the event that, I don't know, if the details of the alert is not specific enough, then we may have to not accept, but then we can discuss that as we evaluate the IDS.
Okay, but at least not being able to classify it in that way, IT/OT or IT/OT/IT/OT, it's not a showstopper lah. We will just then okay.
Yeah, you can provide NA or not applicable if you're unable to classify. So that there's always an option for that.
No, as in, well, I mean, just that we will classify that text, just that we don't tag it this way, right? Just to us, at least for us, the attack is based on the type of attack, not so much on whether it's an IT attack or OT attack, because we see basically, if my question is, if we don't have the ability to tag the alert this way, to specifically to your requirement, no, but we can always justify it during the evidence review. Would that be okay?
Yeah,
so
that
affect the evidence review.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
A question from Gavin: will there still be dummy network traffic noise in the IT network similar to past events? Yeah, so there's no more IT network, so there will not be any dummy network traffic. A question from Rani: what are the non-disclosure rules? I'm guessing this is for the report that for the anonymization. So each of you, when we release the report, it will just be labeled as IDS V1, V2, V3. No brands or company names will be labeled. Yeah. But we will let you know which number you are.
Yeah, all your participation is anonymized by default.
Yeah, that also goes for the scheduling. So once you fill in your desired scheduling slots, nobody else can see it, whether you filled it or not. Those details will directly come to us.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, there's one from Gavin.
Okay. Question: are we allowed to keep the PCAPs captured from the event similar to past events? Yes, you'll be allowed to keep whatever data you collect.
Francisco, to Gavin's question, that's also why I was asking about the additional snapshot, so that we can separately collect the PCAP.
Okay, I think just raise the request because we have a port limitation, so you need to factor in that.
Sure.
Question from Rani. Do we get info on the PPS? What is PPS? Sorry.
Packets per second.
Packets per second. We can, we can do a true proof test, but so far we have done it. It's about 700 Mbps. From each network, from each test bed, we will need to do a check again on what's the packets per second.
Yes, we need that for sizing when we come along.
Okay. If there's nothing else, thank you.